Welcome back to Expose the Podcast. And I am Laverne Badger. And no, this is not Natalie. This is not Natalie.
I am Natalie Hayden, aka Richard Badger.
Natalie is taking some time off, and so Richard is standing in, he's stepping up as a special co-host. And he's special to me because those that know me know that this is my husband. Those that don't know me, this is my husband. And so we thought no better way than to have Richard come on here because he listens to all of our shenanigans. He's part of all of our most of our recordings and bloops and strategy meetings and all of that. So we just thought, what more? And he's here with me, and so if I put a camera in his face, he's just gonna start talking. But this is not only is it special because Richard is here as a fill-in for Nat, but we are just coming off of a weekend from, I don't even know how to describe it, more tragedy, and the country is in an uproar right now in regards to the George Floyd death. And so Richard is here because he ended up going to Minnesota. So I'm going to stop talking and just kind of lead into this conversation because it's a hard conversation to have. It's a hard conversation for me as a woman to have, a black woman, because I have black sons, and a black husband. And so I just want, God, I just feel like, it should be talked about, right? It just should be talked about. So Richard went to Minnesota, y'all. And I didn't understand why he felt the overwhelming need to go to Minnesota. And when he sent the video to me, I couldn't watch the video because I just was like, I never watch videos like that because I just don't want that on my spirit. It'll sit in me for a long time, and I know that about myself, so I can't watch videos like that. And so I read what was happening in the video, and that gave me enough imagery. But when I started talking to Richard about it, he just had this look. It was different than the other ones, and I just don't know. I didn't know what that was. And then when he said, "Oh, do you want to go to Minnesota?" and I'm like, "No, but why do you want to go?" And so I'll just kind of lead that over to you as to when you first saw the video, what was your initial reaction?
So first, thank you for having the conversation. So when I first saw the video, it was probably like 5:45, 6 o'clock in the morning. Just waking up, took my shower, got dressed, getting my day started, and I have this video on my timeline or inbox, or I don't even know where I got the video from. But I'm sitting here watching the video, or at least attempting to watch the video, and I feel my heart start to palpate differently. And I start to tremble. I start to feel angry, and I get this sense of sadness, like I want to cry. And these are emotions and feelings and I've watched hundreds of videos, unfortunately. There's that many videos that are out there. But I've watched, tons and tons of videos where, black men are being mistreated, misused, unfortunately killed. But this one just struck me differently. And so I wasn't able to complete the video on the first run. Ultimately ended up finishing the video later in the day. But the video, how I felt, it definitely piqued my spirit that I needed to do something, and I needed to get involved some way, shape, or form. And so, we're here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Minneapolis, Minnesota is 5 hours away, approximately 5 hours away, and I'm just like, I gotta go. I gotta
So what was different?
I don't know. I have no idea. I can't tell you. There's been other killings that I've watched that, they, whenever I see, black men die, particularly to the hands of the police, I always see myself. I think, like I told you with Boys in the Hood, the movie The Boys in the Hood, when Cuba Gooding and Morris Chestnut get pulled over by the police, when Trey and Reggie get pulled over by the police, and the police officer put the gun to Trey's head, talking about, you probably just another nigga. That affects me every time. And what's funny is it wasn't until later that I realized, you and Nat talk about triggers. I didn't realize I had triggers until that point. I had never had an anxiety attack or anything like that. But as I'm, looking at people's responses and
you talking about trigger from this incident or trigger
from this incident?
Okay.
Well, I recognize that these were triggers in this incident, but the triggers are from my traumas of the past, which I had never really given credit to. So what affected me this time is like I said, I really don't know why it affected me the way that it did, but it did. And so I'm starting now to understand that I do have triggers, I do have traumas. I clearly shelved those traumas somewhere in the back of my mind somewhere, and this brought it out. So
in your head, so you don't know what made this one. You just knew, and that as a wife, that worried me, because he didn't have a plan, and so I'm like, okay, so he's gonna go down there and do what? So you're going down there, we got family down there, so he's gonna go stay with family, and but what I couldn't get him to say what he was gonna do. And as he, because it was like 2 days before you were gonna go, when you said you wanted to go.
Mm-hmm.
And it started getting worse. Like, you started seeing more and more videos of stuff happening down in
the rioting, the looting,
right?
All of that.
And then people who knew he was going are sending me these videos that I'm like, and I'm sending them to him, and I'm like, Richard, I don't think you should go. It's just my 2 cents. And then I wanted him to explain to me, why are you going? I just could not understand why he needed to go. But I said, I'm just going to leave it alone, because I'm not going to convince him not to go. And I don't know that I just was so annoyed with him, and I knew it was not him per se, but it was me not being able to have control over what could possibly happen to him when he gets down there. And so when he finally said, when he was walking out the door and we were saying goodbye, and he was getting ready to get in the car and stuff, and you said to me, I'm really going, I just want to make some connections with some community leaders and see what I can do to help out there, and then take back some of the things and bring back here to Milwaukee. He's not necessarily going to be in the midst of all of the stuff that's going on. And I don't know if he was lying just to comfort me, because he still ended up, now that he's back, he still ended up in the midst of the stuff. But it made me feel better that he was going down there for more than a purpose of having his rage come out in a way that I couldn't help him or that could possibly get him killed. And so that bothered me. But once you got down there, so let me ask you this. Once you got down there and you went to the first location, what was the first location? What was going on there?
Went to a rally, probably about 1,000 or so, 2,000 people at the rally. It was a peaceful rally.
Because they had a bunch of different stuff in different areas of Minneapolis, right?
Yep. Okay. And so this one was, I know we're in Milwaukee, but Minneapolis was getting that national attention. We were at the site of the Wells Fargo bank that they had looted, tore, burned up, blew up, or whatever. So it was at the Wells Fargo site, and yeah, they did some real damage to that bank.
So was it a mixed crowd? What
well, Minneapolis, anybody who's familiar with Minnesota, Minneapolis and St. Paul, it's a very diverse community as it is. And so definitely the rally was insanely diverse. You know, and it's appreciated to have that level of diversity. You know, I think I'm perplexed in the sense of, for all of our non-black allies, it's great that you're there to stand with us in solidarity. It's even greater if you stand in your places with your non-black networks and stand in those rooms and really protest, because that's where, you know, your protest is going to have the greatest effect. Our community, we already know what the hell is going on. We know what we're out here protesting for. But, you know, those other communities, those non-black communities, those more influential communities, the majority communities, if you will, are somewhat disconnected. And I say somewhat just to be nice, but they're disconnected from what's actually going on. So they don't see things. They're not seeing things from the same lens that we see things. You know, typically, up until this point, what's funny is, for as much as this affected me differently, clearly it's affected other people differently as well. This morning, you know, the Breakfast Club, I know you're a huge fan of Charlamagne. The Breakfast Club had a conversation with Rush Limbaugh. Anybody who knows Rush Limbaugh knows that he's one of the most racist, propaganda-pushing radio personalities in the country, with high listenership. And so the words that he speaks go far and wide, but yet even Rush Limbaugh's like, you know, this was out of order. What the police did was out of pocket. So this didn't just impact me that way. It impacted, I think, a lot of people. But
because I think I don't want people. I feel like people, like, we have these executions. Let's call them what they are. So we have these executions of black men and women, and this one seems to just be elevated to no level. Like, people were protesting in London, all over the country.
London, Hong Kong,
like
Ireland, all over the place.
Like all over the place. And it's not that the other victims that were executed didn't deserve that level of awareness. It was just somehow this one is like, everybody is like, enough is enough.
The reason, I think part of the reason, I think the main reason why this one impacted people the way that it did is because it was almost in slow motion. The officer had his knee on George Floyd's neck for almost 9 minutes. Almost 9 minutes. That's almost 600 seconds that you're kneeling on somebody's neck, and the whole time when he's saying he can't breathe, and you got other people around you saying that, you know, he can't breathe, he's telling you he can't breathe. And then there's some other footage that came out in Minneapolis. I don't know if it's hit, I haven't seen it anywhere else, but the two officers that were on George Floyd's legs were saying, shouldn't we turn him? And the guy who's kneeling on his neck is like, no, he's all right. So even the other officers recognize that he, you know, this is too much. This is too much. you
Right.
know, and that the police report, you know, the officers clearly lied, because in the police report it says that George Floyd was resisting. All the videos showed that he wasn't resisting. Nowhere in the police report does it say he went unconscious. Nowhere in the police report say that he put the knee in his neck. Nowhere in the police report says that he died. None of that was in there. So the police, if there was no video, then essentially this would have just been, they apprehended a guy, something happened, he got to the hospital, he died while he was in the hospital. The police would
See,
have
what
brushed it off.
gets me is
no-
why would you write that type of report up when clearly people are recording? You know recordings are going to show up.
You write that report
as
because you've been
evidence.
getting away with it all this time. There's another officer in Minneapolis, same police force, but he's I think Somalian. He's black as far as skin color, as far as look and appearance. He's black. He mistakenly shot and killed a white Australian woman a couple years ago. He's serving 12 and a half years. And they made no qualms about charging him and processing his conviction and none of that. They made no qualms about that. This guy, you know, you're debating. You have Philando Castile, same police department. Yeah, there many.
And he has multiple complaints.
18 complaints over the course of his career.
And people are saying, how many jobs are out there other than the weatherman that you can be wrong that many times and not be fired, or have a complaint against you for that many times,
right,
and not be fired?
Correct.
Or reprimanded or something? Like, neither one of us can go to our jobs and make up to 18.
You can't even go to a restaurant. Go to a restaurant and let somebody spill 18 drinks on somebody. They're fired. They're out the door.
You're not even making it to 18.
And it could be cups of water. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be a beverage that somebody's paying. It doesn't have to be a soda or a cocktail or anything like that.
It's not going to make it to 18, because in that scenario, you making me lose money. So
that's what I'm saying.
We're gonna pay attention.
Right. It could be a cup of water.
When you losing money, because when people complain about it, then we're gonna have to give them a freebie of something. So no, we're gonna get rid of you because you making us lose money. But nothing is happening when people are losing their lives.
So here's the challenge. The challenge now, and how do we? You know, the question is. So what do we do now? How do we move forward? How do we?
Well, before that, I want to put a little bit more emphasis on your feeling, because people need to understand what it is to be a black man who, and what is the mindset you think is going on, because it's a lot of young people out here doing damage, rioting and stuff like that. Now, we're not saying that we condone any of the destruction of any property, of any fires being set.
I'm not going to say that, because I'm not going to say that.
Expose the Podcast is not condoning that behavior. However, and Laverne Badger is not condoning any of that behavior. I understand that behavior, but I'm not saying that it was not necessary either. So it's one of those things where, for me, it's like, if I was trying to figure out a strategy, that wouldn't have been the strategy I came up with. However, I do understand anger, frustration, hurt, and pain. And when you put that mixture together, no one is thinking about the consequences. You're just thinking about, I need somebody to hurt who's hurt me. I need them to hurt or feel my pain, and then we'll deal with the rest later. But you need to feel us in a major way right now.
The looting and the rioting still is not an equal measure.
Absolutely.
They're not applying equal pressure. The looting and the rioting that is getting so much attention right now is a direct response to, it's an alternative response to actually resorting to acts of violence. So it's, in my mind, it's still a peaceful protest because the buildings can't feel. If people want to see a real violent protest, then they wouldn't be breaking the windows of these buildings. They wouldn't be burning these buildings down. They'll be actually going after people who they'll be going after legislators, they'll be going after other elected officials, they'll be going after police officers, they'll be going after the police officers' children. That's violent protest. A building has no feelings. There's no humanity to a building. There's a value, but there's no humanity to a building. So it's still, in my mind, it's still a peaceful protest. And based on the years of bullshit that we've gone through. So if you want to hear how a black man feels, the years of bullshit that we've gone through, sitting on my block, getting put face down on the sidewalk across the street from my own house because you're telling me that there was a certain crime that happened in the area and I fit the fucking description, or all of us fit the description, is bullshit. To be 47 years old, law-abiding citizen, to have served this country in the military, to serve this community, to raise my family, but still get nervous to no end when the police pull up behind me, even though I haven't done anything. To know that any time I interact or step outside of the comfort zone of my house and my community, I pose a threat to society, yet I'm out here unarmed. Tupac said it best, the most dangerous weapon is an educated black man. But the problem is we can't show our education, because as soon as we begin to show any type of quote unquote resistance, and the resistance could be just something as simple as, why did you pull me over? Now all of a sudden you're being confrontational.
Right.
For black men, you're being confrontational. For white people, you're exercising your rights.
Right.
So it's extremely frustrating and infuriating to be a black man in America. That's the short answer. The long answer is, if you have conversations, if people want to have conversations with black men, then you have to be prepared for them to start with the historical piece of their first encounter of racial biases that they experienced to where they are today. I'm disciplined, I'm focused. You were concerned about me going to Minneapolis. My mother was concerned about me going to Minneapolis. I was never concerned about going to Minneapolis. I'm not one that's just going to snap out. I'm not trying to get involved in the chaos, because I understand that unorganized chaos is not going to lead you anywhere except for making you tired as hell. And I'm too old for that. I'm too old to be trying to rip and run in front of fucking police. That's not where my motivation is at. My motivation is policy and legislative change, and at some point we got to get there. But if shit has to be destroyed in order for people to come to the table, then destroy everything that needs to be destroyed. That's how I feel. Nobody was killed. The officer who did this, the officer who killed George Floyd, is still walking his ass around here. His family is still walking his ass around. His kids are still walking around here. If they really want to see
full
violence,
protection around his house.
it doesn't matter. The protection doesn't matter, because if somebody want to get you, they can get you.
But I'm saying, like, they still are spending tax dollars. You may have fired him,
right?
But he still had police officers posted up protecting him.
So I mean,
where was that protection?
So the rioting,
when the four of y'all was watching a man die.
My point is, the rioting and the looting is still nonviolent. At the end of the day, it's still nonviolent, because a building is not going to bleed, it's not going to cry, it's not going to have a parent that's going to mourn its loss. It's not. And so, with that, it is what it is.
So, what's the woman's name? The bird watcher.
Oh, yeah.
Now, this pissed me off to no end. But I could just imagine as a black man, you already feel some type of way when you're around white women, because you not only a black man, you're a big black man. So if you, with a deep voice, so if you elevate anything with your voice or body language, moving any kind of way, you're going to be considered a huge threat. But here you have a bird watcher with no threat in his voice at all. He specifically just asks, can you put your dog on a leash? And she went crazy. She planned out a whole skit on what to tell the police.
Which lets me know it wasn't her first time doing something like that.
Because you saying, this is what I'm going to say.
Right.
When I call 911, if you don't stop filming me. So you call 911 with the intent of the police coming and harming that man, because you can't call 911 and say, "Oh, an African American, oh my God, an African American man, he's threatening me and my dog. Oh my God, please help."
Threatening my life.
My life. I'm sorry. And think
life.
that the police ain't showing up guns blazing with, if there was no but see, here again, it's a video camera recording you saying with the lie that you getting ready to tell, and you still had the nerve to pick up that phone and tell that lie as if that the video was not going to be displayed. Why? Because you felt like you were still going to be able to get away with it.
Privilege is real.
You a whole VP of an organization. They fired her ass right away, which they should have. But what is more concerning is that you were in a leadership role of an organization, a corporation. And the thought process of what you had, that you could just call on an innocent black man because you can, and you supposed to be over. I'm sure there's some black people that work for that corporation.
Let's not forget, she was in the wrong.
Absolutely.
Your dog was supposed to be on a leash. He was asking you to
a
choose.
whole sign that said, "Put your dog on. Dogs need to be on the leash." She was standing by the sign. But it was the privilege part of her, the arrogance part of her was, "I dare you, black man, tell me what to do." So if she could do that and do it on camera and not care, how many other lives were affected in the workplace? People she live around, and people not be able to film it. You know what I mean? I don't know, but there's millions, hundreds of thousands of people like her. It amazed me that she literally did it. Now I've witnessed it. I've witnessed people overreact. I've witnessed situations where people have overreacted in corporate America, where, in meetings and things, and people overreact and elevate their voice, or they start crying because they want somebody to believe them over the minority, and that tends to sway their way. But I had never seen it to this extent, and I didn't recognize how much power she had. I didn't recognize how much power white women in that capacity and that mindset had to destroy another human being. And then she cried and said she ain't a racist. She said she wasn't a racist.
And that her life is ruined.
And that her life is ruined. It should be. Lady, you tried to take out a whole person because you didn't want to put your dog on a leash. And at the end of the day, your life is not ruined. At the end of the day, you're still white. At the end of the day, you're still educated. At the end of the day, people will forget that you did this and be on to the next racist event.
They won't forget, but they won't hold it against her.
They'll give her another chance because what'll happen is, I was under some stress, or I was doing this and I was that and I was blah blah blah, and people don't understand, and then the tears will roll, and then she's back, and now you're back. Scene cut, right?
Yeah, this ain't about her. This is about George.
I just needed to have my moment.
This is about Breonna Taylor.
Have my moment as figuring out, and it is about them. It's just
about Ahmaud.
I just needed a moment. That bothered me.
I mean, just within you look at the last 3 months. You had Ahmaud Arbery. Last 4 months, because Ahmaud Arbery was killed back in March. Breonna Taylor. George Floyd.
You need a whole list to name off all of the situations that has happened, and it can just go on and on. And I'm just like, and in Georgia with oh my God, the whole country is in an uproar, and they're still rallying to this day, and they should, because I feel. But then you have a president that says, if y'all don't get y'all states in order, I'm coming off the throne to kill some black people. Because that's what you're saying, that if y'all don't handle it, I'm coming down and I'm going to enforce the law and make sure it gets handled. So the ones who are supposedly causing the problem are the black communities, right? So that's what you're saying. You revving up to come kill some more black people?
Yeah, I won't call him president. Celebrity in chief.
The guy who's supposed to be in charge.
Yeah, the celebrity in chief.
But still, he still has the power to make stuff like that happen.
Unfortunately,
and
yes.
It's just sad. I don't know. I to all I don't know what to do. I don't know what it feels like. I have fear of police. I know my fear is not as heightened as a black man's fear. But it's starting to get there because we're seeing more and more. Is no reason I would ever imagine that somebody would come busting through my door and shoot me and kill me while I sleep. I'm waking up out of my bed, not knowing what happened. I know that my first thought is not the law enforcement. This got to be somebody trying to rob me or break into my house and do harm to me, not the police. To protect and serve. And they had a nerve to... It didn't take them long to arrest her boyfriend, her fiance, did it? When he shot them. He shot a police officer, right?
Yeah.
So, it wasn't no video of that. But it ain't take them no time.
All of their cameras were off.
It ain't take them no time.
And then they just shot somebody. Louisville police just shot somebody else. A brother who owns I think it's a barbecue restaurant. They just shot and killed him. And again, all body cams are off.
What's the point of having them if they're not mandated to be turned on at all
Body
times?
cams are supposed to be on, but for some reason, all of these officers,
I feel like they be knowing that they getting ready to do something
right,
that they're not supposed to, so let me turn it off. So then it becomes my word against the truth.
Right. And if you don't have, even if you have the video footage, they're still not getting convicted. And that's part of the issue.
That's part of the issue, because you can't even have evidence anymore. Evidence isn't even working. I know Ricky Smiley was saying that he was sending his son back to school, but he had to install some cameras in his car. So if you get pulled on, you need to switch that camera on. That footage needs to be going. And that's one way. Unfortunately, it's still not going to stop something from happening. It's just going to record what happened. It's not going to keep a police officer from killing your child.
Right.
It's just going to document that he was killed. And then you try to fight from that footage.
So at some point we got to talk about strategies and next steps and things of that nature.
I had, real quick before we end, I went in to work today, and I didn't even tell you this yet. And somebody was at work, and I was talking to him, and he said, I'm trying to get out of here because I don't want to get caught up in this mess. And he was talking about the protesting that goes on down. He called it mess. And I was like, okay, I don't know how I felt about the word mess. But, so I'm just sitting there and I'm listening. And then he says, yeah, because it just doesn't make sense to me. Oh, and this is a white person. And I know him. I've known him for years. And so he says, I just don't understand, how do you go destroy your own neighborhood? What's the point of that? I said, what would be he's like, what would be the point of destroying an area that you live in? I said, because people are angry. And he said, well, I just don't understand it, because you're only mad. And he says, as a Christian, that yes, absolutely, it's wrong what happened to him, but you're only mad at one person. And I was like, what? So I'm thinking, at first I was really hesitating. I was just like, I'm not trying to have this conversation with him. I'm just trying to get done what I came in here to do and keep it moving. But he said he's only mad at one, they only need to be mad at one person. So in his mind, you're only supposed to be mad at the one that had his knee in his neck. I said, no, it's a whole system to be mad at. And I said, it's a whole system. It's the process, the accountability. I said, it's everything that is the problem around that. He's just one entity of what happened. And then so we went in, long story short, I'm not going to go into it on here because this is somebody I work with, but we're working on trying to figure out how we have those conversations. And I'm not even knocking them for having the conversation with me. One, I applaud you for having a conversation with me so that I can inform you of where
so you can provide them a different perspective.
Right. And so I'm just like, they're angry. And when you're angry, you frustrated, you mad, you hurt, and you get, that is a recipe for disaster. No one's thinking about, oh, maybe I shouldn't do this. What they're thinking about is, I'm hurt right now. I'm not thinking about all of the other things. I said, and that's what people need to understand, is getting to understand why they're hurt, why they're angry, specifically. He even went so far as to say that he felt like the young people today, they just want to get the likes off of social media. So the more likes that they get, the more damage they're doing. He ain't the only one who think that way.
It's nice to be able to have that perspective.
That you think that the chaos that's going on is because of social media. Now, again, there's some fools out there that's about their life, that's out there trying to figure out to be seen on social media doing some goofy shit. That ain't even about the cause. You just out there. But that small percentage of people who are out there on that, let's talk about the ones who are out there on paying attention to the cause. You can't focus on what the real cause was, because he says all of this is scrambling. No one is focused on the issue now. Everybody is now focused on all this rioting and stuff. I said, when the dust settles, then conversations need to be had. So he says we're gonna come from it from different perspectives. I can't see what you see. And I said, absolutely. And so I said, you can't. I said, and I can appreciate that. Appreciate you saying that. He said, I can acknowledge that. And I was like, okay. He says, what could we have done? What could have happened differently? Him being the officer. Should he have been arrested? If he had been arrested immediately after it happened, would that have done it? I said, absolutely, that would have helped. So when you prolong something like that, what people are thinking is, oh, here we go again. Here we go again. Ain't nothing getting ready to change. Y'all getting ready to let them off. This is y'all trying to figure out, y'all prolonging it. You're trying to figure out a strategy to get them out of it. That is, he says, okay, so that I get. So he was like, so we're going off of history. He made the comment is that black people kill white people too. I said they do.
And they get convicted for it.
But you can't just compare to black people killing white people, officers. You have to look at what the consequences are. the accountability for the action. You just can't go tit for tat and think that that's a good comparison. That ain't a comparison. You got to say, okay, if a black man shoots a white officer, if a white officer shoots a black man, we both going to jail for life. You know what I'm saying? That ain't happening. That's not happening. So you can't make that comparison. So we ended it we ended the conversation as what happens now. I've been hanging around you a little bit. I said at this point it's in the hands of the lawmakers. The conversations need to start happening. Strategic plans need to start happening at higher levels than where we are. And not that these conversations haven't happened before and plans haven't happened before. It's execution. It's accountability. Now, okay, let's start having these conversations, but we got to start. It just can't be, oh, we had a Zoom meeting, talk about what's going on and how we can fix it. But then when it's time, when the next execution happened, everybody forget about what they said they agreed to do. Right?
There are different strategic approaches that are being discussed. Killer Mike, big shouts out to Killer Mike. Killer Mike is definitely one of the, in my opinion, one of the best activists and leaders that our community has currently. But locally, the things that we can do as a community are things such as vote, complete your census form if you haven't completed it already. When you get called to jury duty, serve on the jury. There are going to be those situations where you get called on a jury and people try to get out of jury duty. But if you go and serve on the jury, you very likely are going to be the only one of color on that jury. And if it so happens that you get a case that's newsworthy, such will be the case in Minneapolis now, where this officer is now going to be, he's going to have a jury. It's going to be a jury trial, What happens if, you got 10 black people who get called on the jury, and of the 10, 9 of them say, I ain't messing with this. And so now you have one person that's actually going to respond to that, to the jury trial or appointment. And
then they may be picked off.
And right, they get picked out. So now they're not even, so now you got a jury of his peers of all white people or of all, everybody's non-black. So there may be, Latino, there may be Asian, there may be, but other people who are going to be more sympathetic to his cause and or not to the victim. So got to do that. We got to start holding our elected officials accountable at city, county, state, and federal levels. You do that by sending emails. Emails are trackable. So you send emails, particularly in this situation, you can send emails to all of your elected officials to express your concern, disdain for what's going on. As far as your local municipalities, your city police departments, and your county sheriff's departments, make sure that you're sending letters that you want to have public scrutiny over the police unions' collective bargaining agreements, because the police and sheriff department are paid out of tax dollars. And so if they're going to be paid out of tax dollars, then the taxpayers should have a voice as they're negotiating these collective bargaining agreements. And one of the first things that should happen in these collective bargaining agreements is that officers should not be able to be shielded by their union, who are not attorneys. They should not be allowed to call their union representative in situations such as this. Now, if they have an attorney, that's one thing, but they should not be able to call their union representative in situations such as this. A union representative is no more than a fellow officer who's been voted as the union rep, as a union steward. They have no law degree, so they should not be able to be there. But we need to somehow take all the power that these police unions have. We need to be able to strip them of some of that authority. There need to be more community advisory boards over these more community police advisory committees and police accountability boards, so that way there's more public scrutiny over what the police are doing. Right now, there's just, God, the laundry list is long.
So the bottom line is there's still some work to do.
There's a lot of work to do.
But I think this uprising around the country, in the world, if nobody starts listening after this, I don't know. I just don't know.
I would encourage people to pull your city budget. In Milwaukee, public safety, that's fire and police, makes up over 90% of the city's budget. I would encourage people to look at their city's budget to see where public safety is as far as a line item on your city budget. If it's in that 80, 90, almost 100 percentile of the city budget, then your people, your community needs to be more engaged on how those dollars are spent. Because in most metropolitan districts, you're looking at over $1 billion budget, easily, sometimes multiple $1 billion budgets. And if we're not at the table negotiating those dollars, and those dollars are being spent without us, and they're going to be spent without us if we're not participating. Nobody's going to spend money in your household without you knowing about it. But yet you're allowing people to spend money that you're contributing to this fund without you knowing about it, without you having a voice. Make sure that you allow your voice to be heard. You know, allow your voice to be heard. When it's all said and done, I look at this situation as the system is the cancer. The rioting and the looting that people are talking about is the chemotherapy. The buildings burn is the hair loss. But at the end of the day, the hair could come back once we fix the cancer. And the cancer again is the system. Those buildings will come back. Those houses will come back. All that will be restored at some point. But if we don't fix the system, all this shit is just going to happen all over again. If this didn't happen with George Floyd, and I said this when I was in Minneapolis, if this didn't happen with George Floyd, if dude would have just got off his fucking neck and George Floyd would have lived, what you see happening around the world right now, all the protesting, it would have happened, just not now. Because there's going to be another episode. We know it's going to be another episode. So there's going to be another episode.
Execution.
And so it would have happened then. So, you know, may God bless George Floyd and may this brother rest in peace. And I tip my hat and thank the brother for his sacrifice. Because of his sacrifice, prayerfully, our country will be better as a result. Like I said, buildings, houses, property, all that could be restored, but lives cannot.
Yeah.
So this brother made the ultimate sacrifice against his own will, against his own desire. But he made the sacrifice, and now what we do with that sacrifice is up to us.
And I do want to take a second just to say that we have some amazing community leaders. That's been out there grinding, figuring things out, and been in the midst of stuff. I hate to start naming because I don't know everybody. You got the definitely Office of Violence Prevention, Reggie Moore and his team, 414 for Life, 414 Life. Is it 414 Life? And they, Von Mays, Homer Blow,
Brother Khalil.
Yes, just a number of Jermaine Reed. Jermaine was in Minneapolis.
Jermaine was in Minneapolis. We missed each other, but Jermaine was there.
Yeah, and Jermaine went there, but he came on back home and was still, grinding. But everybody is not all bad. We are fighting not for the kids of today, but the black girls and boys of tomorrow. So.
Before we go, let me say this as well. I sent out a text yesterday or the day before to our children just to check on them, to make sure that they're okay, and let them know that if they need to talk, if they have questions, concerns, anything like that, if there's any residual feelings and effects, that we're here to be a listening ear and hopefully provide some guidance. Check on your people. this is a time where we need to check on one another to make sure that we're okay.
Check on the not just your kids. Check on the black men
That's what
in
I was about
your
to say.
life.
I'm going to see a therapist tomorrow. To have that conversation, because, like I said, this didn't sit well with me. I'm having problems sleeping. Post-traumatic syndrome is definitely real. Anxiety is definitely real. I know I'll be okay. I'm not worried about myself in the long run. But I do want to make sure that, I do the proper maintenance on myself so that I am good in the long run. So check on your people. Check on the brothers in your life, because the stress level is high.
Yeah.
Stress level is extremely high right now. And the way that if this impacted white America to the point where they're out there protesting, imagine what the hell we're feeling as black men.
Right.
Because any one of us could have been George Floyd. Any one of us.
And
non-resistant,
hashtag that, I am George
non-resistant. He complied with all the requests. And even when he laid there, he was still in compliance. As he died, he was still in compliance. That could have been any of us. And I got boys out there. I got sons out there that I worry about. And I mean biological and just boys that I know, that fit the description. So check on your people.
All right. Well, that was a pretty heavy topic that needed to be had. I think you're going to be with us another week.
Stay tuned.
For the shenanigans.
Listen out for the variety of advocates. I would say listen out for Killer Mike.
Babe, I'm trying to end this.
I know. I'm not going to say anything else after this. Listen to the advocates so you can start to associate yourself to a plan. Killer Mike. I'm going to be definitely listening to Killer Mike and Charlamagne the God on a lot of stuff that they're going to be proposing. But I encourage you to start listening to the plans that are going to be introduced in the coming days, and figure out where you fit into that plan and start to engage yourself in those activities. I will go silent now.
This is what I have to live with. So, I'm Laverne Badger.
I'm Natalie Hayden, a.k.a. Richard Badger.
No, he's not Natalie Hayden. I miss my girl, but she's getting some well-needed rest, and Richard will be with me at least another week, maybe another 2 weeks.
Hopefully I'll find my way to the barbershop.
Well, I know, right? Next week is surviving quarantine with your loved one. Y'all definitely have to stay tuned for that one. That's going to be comical. So, until next time, thank you for joining us.
About to head home now.
I know, right? All right, you guys, we love you. See you next week. Podcast every Wednesday at noon. And just be safe out there, you guys. Peace.